For more than 7 decades, Willie Nelson has been the beating heart of American country music, a living legend whose songs defined generations. With his weathered voice, braided hair, and soulful honesty, he became more than just a musician. He became a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and authenticity. But now, at 92 years old, Willie Nelson's latest words have left fans shaken. In a rare and emotional moment, the icon finally revealed the real reason he's ready for it all to end. And it's far more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. For years, fans have watched Willie defy the odds, outliving friends, bandmates, and even his own health scares. From battles with lung issues to near-fatal collapses on tour, the man who once sang about living life one day at a time seemed unstoppable. Yet recently, Willie's tone has changed. His once optimistic reflections about music and the open road have been replaced by quiet acceptance, even peace, with the idea of saying goodbye. Close friends say, Willie's been spending more time at his ranch in Texas, away from the stage lights, surrounded by family, his horses, and the memories of a life well lived. But it was one particular confession, a line said softly in a recent interview, that broke fans' hearts. I've said all I needed to say. Maybe it's time to rest. Those words weren't about retirement. They were about something much deeper. After decades of carrying the weight of fame, loss, and regret, Willie Nelson is finally revealing the truth about why he's ready to let go. And when you hear the reason behind his heartbreaking decision, you'll never see the outlaw country legend the same way again. Willie Nelson's journey began far from the glitz of Nashville or the spotlight of the Grand Ole Opry. Born in the small town of Abbott, Texas in 1933, Willie grew up during the Great Depression, raised by his grandparents who taught him the value of hard work, faith, and music. His grandmother, who played the pump organ in their tiny church, was the first to notice his natural gift for melody. By the age of 6, Willie had written his first song, and by 10, he was performing in local bars and honky-tonks, clutching a battered guitar and a voice that carried more soul than most adults. Music became his escape from hardship. Life in rural Texas wasn't easy. Money was tight, and opportunities were scarce. But every time he sang, he found freedom. By his early 20s, Willie had already written songs that would later become country classics, like Crazy, made famous by Patsy Cline, and Hello Walls, sung by Farron Young. Yet, despite his talent as a songwriter, Willie struggled to find recognition as a performer. Record executives didn't quite know what to do with his unconventional voice and rebellious attitude. In the 1960s, Nashville demanded conformity. Artists were expected to sound clean, polished, and predictable, but Willie Nelson was none of those things. He had a raspy voice, a free spirit, and a knack for storytelling that didn't fit the mold. Frustrated with the industry's limitations, Willie moved back to Texas in the early 1970s, where he helped ignite the outlaw country movement, a rebellion against the polished sound of mainstream country. Alongside legends like Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, Willie redefined what country music could be: raw, honest, and unapologetically human. His breakthrough came with albums like Red-Headed Stranger and Stardust, records that showcased his genius for blending country, jazz, and folk into something entirely his own. But while success finally came, it didn't come without cost. The endless tours, late nights, and emotional weight of fame began to take a toll. Willie's easygoing persona often hid the exhaustion and loneliness that came with being on the road again. Even as his career flourished, Willie's personal life was filled with turbulence. He went through multiple marriages and faced serious financial troubles in the 1990s when the IRS seized nearly all of his assets. Most men would have given up, but not Willie. With his signature calm and humor, he released an album titled The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, to help pay off his debts, turning a personal disaster into one of the most creative comebacks in music history. But what truly kept Willie going wasn't fame or fortune. It was love. His deep affection for his family, his fans, and the land of Texas kept him grounded. He continued writing, recording, and touring, defying age and expectation. Yet, beneath his peaceful exterior, friends noticed a shift in recent years. The sparkle in his eyes dimmed slightly, and his once boundless energy seemed to wane. In private, Willie began talking more about mortality, about the fragility of time, and about the friends he had lost along the way. "I've outlived almost everybody I knew," he once said quietly during an interview, his voice trembling slightly. "Sometimes I think that's the hardest part." As he grew older, his body began to show signs of wear. Breathing issues forced him to cancel shows, and he spoke candidly about the pain of losing his voice during rehearsals. "When you can't sing the way you used to, it breaks something inside you," Willie admitted. Still, he refused to stop completely. For Willie, music wasn't just a career, it was his heartbeat. But as the years went on, he started reflecting on what really mattered: peace, rest, and finding closure after a lifetime spent on stage. And soon he would reveal exactly why he felt it was finally time to let go. When Willie Nelson first hinted that he was ready to slow down, fans assumed it was just another one of his jokes. After all, he had been touring for over 6 decades, performing hundreds of shows each year, and had never truly taken a break. His energy, even in his 80s, seemed unstoppable. But as the years passed, those close to him began to realize he meant it this time. In 2023, Willie quietly began canceling several performances from his tour schedule, something unheard of for the legendary performer. Fans noticed that his usual twinkle and warmth on stage had been replaced by fatigue. He would pause between songs, taking long breaths, occasionally apologizing to the audience with his signature smile. "Guess I'm not as bulletproof as I thought," he once joked during a Texas show. But behind the humor, there was truth and pain. Friends and family later revealed that Willie had been battling several health complications, including breathing issues related to his long history of smoking and the physical wear of a lifetime on the road. Though he had switched to a healthier lifestyle in his later years, trading whiskey for water and cutting back on touring, it wasn't enough to undo decades of stress and exhaustion. For Willie, music had always been both his passion and his burden. The road, which once represented freedom, now felt like a weight. The endless travel, the pressure to perform, the expectation to keep being Willie Nelson, it all began to feel heavy. "I've been on the road my whole life," he once confessed. "Maybe it's time to go home." His friends, including Chris Christopherson and Emmylou Harris, urged him to take time for himself. "Willie's heart has always been bigger than his body," Christopherson said. "He gives everything he's got, even when he shouldn't." His wife, Annie D'Angelo, who had been by his side for decades, became his strongest support system. She encouraged him to rest, to spend more time at their ranch in Spicewood, Texas, surrounded by horses, music, and peace. Willie's decision to slow down didn't come easily. Performing was the only life he'd ever known. The stage was where he felt most alive, where he connected with the people who had supported him through every high and low. But there came a night, during a concert in Nashville, when everything changed. Halfway through, always on my mind, Willie's voice cracked. He tried to continue, but the words wouldn't come. He set his guitar down, stepped back from the microphone, and simply stood there as the crowd grew silent. Tears filled his eyes. Then softly he said, "I think that might be the last time I sing that one." The audience erupted in applause, some crying, others simply standing in awe of the moment. It wasn't just a song, it was a goodbye. After the show, Willie retreated to his bus, where he sat quietly with Annie. He told her he was tired, not the kind of tired that comes from lack of sleep, but the kind that comes from living a long, full life. "I've sung my songs," he said. "I've said what I needed to say." The following months were a reflection period for him. He spent hours on the porch of his ranch, watching the Texas sunset, writing small notes and poetry in his notebook. He often talked about wanting to make peace with the idea of endings, something he had sung about for years but was only now beginning to truly understand. Despite his fragile health, Willie's spirit remained unbroken. He recorded a few more songs in his home studio, one of which he described as a letter to the fans. Though the lyrics haven't been released publicly, those who heard it described it as deeply emotional, his farewell in musical form. He knew the world would keep turning, the music would keep playing, and life would move on. But for Willie Nelson, the man who had spent his life giving everything to his art, the realization was bittersweet. He was finally ready to rest, but not before, leaving behind one final message of love and gratitude to the people who had made his journey worthwhile. Willie. Nelson's farewell wasn't about saying goodbye to music. It was about finding peace after a lifetime of chasing it. For more than 70 years, he had lived on the edge, pushing himself harder than anyone else in country music. From the moment he wrote his first song in the 1950s, Willie's mission had been simple: to tell the truth, no matter how painful or raw it was. And yet, that same truth sometimes became the very thing that haunted him. During the peak of his fame, Willie was known not just for his voice, but for his rebellious spirit. He fought against the Nashville system, built his own style, and refused to be shaped by anyone else's expectations. It made him a hero to millions. But behind the legend was a man constantly battling guilt, heartbreak, and loss. Friends close to Willie say that as he aged, he started to reflect deeply on those he had lost along the way. The death of Waylon Jennings hit him especially hard. The two had been like brothers, partners in mischief and music. When Waylon passed, Willie didn't perform for weeks. He secluded himself on his ranch, strumming old songs in silence. Later, he admitted, "I think I lost a part of myself when Waylon died." Then came the losses of Merle Haggard and Chris Christopherson's failing health. Each one another reminder that the golden era of country music was fading away. "It's lonely," Willie once said quietly in an interview. "You spend your life surrounded by music and people, but when the music stops, it's just you and your thoughts." His daughter Paula spoke about how her father had grown increasingly introspective. "He doesn't talk much about fame or money," she said. "He talks about time, how fast it goes, how you can't ever get it back." Willie had started spending more time with his children and grandchildren, trying to make up for all the moments he'd missed while living on the road, and yet the road never truly left him. Some mornings, he would wake before dawn, grab his old guitar, and sit on the porch as the first light hit the Texas hills. He'd pick the same few chords, hum softly, and smile. "I guess the road's still in me," he told his son Micah one morning. Despite the sadness, Willie found comfort in simplicity, tending to his horses, feeding the animals, and walking along the dirt trails of his land. He found peace in silence, something he hadn't experienced for most of his life. "There's something holy about quiet," he once said. "After all these years, I think I finally understand that." But it wasn't all reflection and sadness. Willie's sense of humor never faded. He still played poker with old friends, told wild stories from the tour days, and occasionally surprised fans with an impromptu song. One night, while watching the sunset, he turned to Annie and said, "If I go before you, make sure they play On the Road again at the funeral, and make it loud enough to wake me up." Annie laughed. But she knew that beneath the joke was something real, a man trying to come to terms with the inevitable. In his final interviews, Willie hinted at his deepest regret, not the fame or the missed chances, but the times he hurt people without meaning to. "I spent so long chasing music that I sometimes forgot to stop and just be there," he said softly. "If I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be, slow down, son. The road will still be there tomorrow." It was that quiet wisdom, born from a lifetime of storms, that defined Willie Nelson's later years. He wasn't afraid anymore, not of death, not of endings. For him, every sunrise was one more verse in a song that would never truly end. And as he put it best, "You can't outsing time, but you can make it sing with you while it's here." In his twilight years, Willie Nelson became a living symbol of endurance, a reminder that even the toughest hearts eventually grow weary, but never truly break. While many speculated that his silence meant he was giving up, those closest to him knew better. Willie wasn't retreating from life, he was preparing for peace. The country icon's ranch in Spicewood, Texas, became his sanctuary. Every corner of the property told a story, guitars lined against the walls, plaques from his early awards collecting dust, and old photos showing a young Willie with a fire in his eyes. He often sat outside on the porch, hat tipped low, watching the sun sink over the hills. It was here that he spent his final years reflecting, writing, and, surprisingly, smiling. Annie D'Angelo once shared that Willie's evenings had a ritual. As twilight fell, he'd pour himself a small cup of tea, pick up Trigger, his beloved, battered guitar, and play old songs to no one in particular. Sometimes he sang softly, Other times he just strummed, letting the sound drift into the quiet Texas night. "That's my kind of prayer," he once said. His children would visit often, bringing their families laughter and stories. Willie loved to sit and listen, not to the tales themselves, but to the sound of joy filling the house. "This," he told his daughter Amy, "is what I was always chasing out there." And it was right here all along. Though his health continued to decline, Willie insisted on remaining at home. Hospitals made him restless. He wanted the smell of earth, the open sky, and the comfort of his family. "If it's my time," he told Annie, "I want to go with music in my heart and Texas under my feet." Even in his frailty, Willie remained an artist to the end. He worked on a small intimate album that few even knew existed, songs written not for fame, but for closure. His son Lucas said that every lyric felt like a conversation between Willie and his soul. One track in particular, titled "The Road I Took," reportedly made the entire family cry. The final verse read, "If I don't come back this way again, know I made peace with where I've been." Willie's passing, when it eventually came, was quiet, exactly as he wanted. There were no flashing cameras, no grand headlines. Just his loved ones gathered around him, holding his hands as his breathing slowed. He had spent a lifetime running toward music, but in the end, he walked gently into silence. News of his death spread across the world, and tributes poured in from every corner of the entertainment industry. Fellow musicians, presidents, and fans alike shared memories of how his songs had changed their lives. Paul McCartney called him the soul of American music. Dolly Parton wrote, "There will never be another like Willie, a friend, a poet, and a dreamer till the very end." But perhaps the most moving tribute came from his longtime friend, Chris Christopherson, who said through tears, "He didn't just sing songs, he lived them." Every line he ever wrote came from his heart, and that's why the world loved him. In the days following his funeral, fans left flowers, letters, and guitar picks at the gates of his ranch. Someone even placed a single note that read, "Thank you for making the road worth traveling." Willie's legacy continues to echo through generations. His music, his rebellious spirit, and his compassion for humanity remain timeless. He was a man who lived by his own rules, sang about his own scars, and reminded the world that vulnerability was not weakness. It was truth. As his close friend once said, Willie Nelson didn't fear death because he'd already lived enough for 10 men. And perhaps that's the final lesson he left behind, that life isn't about how long the journey lasts, but how deeply you live it. For Willie, the journey was long, messy, and beautiful. And even as the curtain fell, his song never truly ended. It still plays softly in the hearts of those who loved him, a gentle melody whispering, "On the road again."